What's good, people? Can you guys hear me or what? Alex, can you hear me? Man.
I can hear you perfectly, man. Just give me 1 minute, and I promise this time it's going to be 1 minute only.
Promises, promises. The clock has started. We'll see. April, what's up, girl? I know you've been asking bunches of questions in the DMs. How are you? Let's see. How do I do this? Oh yeah. And I guess you can't really answer me because you don't have the microphone. But if you request the ability to speak, I'm sure Alex can shoot you the microphone. Let's see. I would, but I'm just a lowly speaker. I'm not a co-host, unfortunately. All right. Let's see.
Was actually hoping that you would sing something for us.
Oh, did you catch me humming?
Yeah, I actually even heard you singing once when we had a team call.
Oh yeah.
It was beautiful.
I can do something for you, my friend. Maybe not right now, but
Oh, I didn't even know that you were able to play guitar.
yeah, I've been known to throw a couple guitar videos up on the old Facebooks, to get a little attention. So yeah, I actually used to be in a band when I was in college. So I used to play bass and sing, and we went to the studio, recorded some stuff, and all that fun stuff. We actually even bought a van, and we were touring around the southeast back in the day. And I don't know, April might know this because she's a Southern girl, I think. But there's a place called the Georgia Theater in Athens, Georgia, which is where I went to college at the University of Georgia. And Georgia Theater is a really famous venue. Lots of big names have played there. There's actually a John Mayer video. I think it's called "Why Georgia," the song called "Why Georgia," and in that video, he's standing in front of the building on the sidewalk, and in the marquee, I think it has his name or the name of the song or something. But we used to play that venue back in the day and have a lot of fun with that. Enjoyed it.
So where can I find the footage?
This was pre-cell phone, man. You know, I'm an old guy, right? So yeah, we didn't have cell phones in the '90s to record all this stuff. Not even, well, I mean, I guess the first smartphone wasn't even until the mid 2000s. So yeah.
I'm actually pretty happy about me being able to witness the time without phones, like probably the last generation, and seeing all these people, these young people living and like growing with smartphones and social media is actually terrible, right?
It can be. There's actually quite a lot of research on this, and of course, being a mindset coach, a performance coach in real life, we talk about this a lot, but the psychology behind it is pretty horrible. I think something along the lines of if you allow a child more than 2 hours per day on a phone, the likelihood of them being depressed or suicidal goes through the roof. Like it's insane the amount of like young adults and especially young girls who are being impacted by it. Because obviously, you turn on Instagram or one of these other platforms, and all you see is just like half naked girls showing their bodies off, and of course, all it does is make other girls feel bad, and then of course, that is not a good thing for the psychology of a young developing human, male or female. So this constant comparison to other people is a deadly thing, and I think that's probably one of the reasons that it's so detrimental in a lot of ways.
Talking about young people and trying to find some kind of relation to NFTs, I actually read about one guy today who's 14 years old, I think, and he just hustled his way up to get a DE guard. and instantly got drained. And then he
No.
like yeah, he said like he had a ute first, and then he did some meme coin shit, and then he was able to buy a DE god, and he instantly made like a tweet saying like, hey, I got drained, please help me, this is my Ethereum and this is my Solana wallet. um and then all these guys commenting like, hey, like, yeah, sure, of course, and they didn't believe him. And then he went ahead
Mhm.
and even recorded a video like like speaking and showing people that he's actually a little guy. And then saying like, hey, I'm not asking for funds or for anything or any donations or anything. And then he proceeded offering his services. He said he's some kind of graphic designer. um I should actually like let him be an artist, incubator artist, right?
Definitely.
But yeah, he went ahead and but what do you think? Like we've seen that a lot. A lot of people claiming to be drained or even like got drained, and then asking for help and donations. What do you think about that?
I think it's fine if it's legit. The problem in this market is that with anonymity comes lots of irresponsibility, and so there's a lack of trust and blah blah blah. So I mean, I think if at the end of the day you are asking someone for money, whether you are, you know, like in this case, someone got drained and they're asking for help, or if you're a service provider, specifically like you and I, providing a service through Goodfellas NFT, like if you're providing a service and asking people to participate in some way, shape, or form, you can't be anonymous. You just can't. Because the temptation for all humans is to do the wrong thing if things are too good, and to do the wrong things if things are too bad. And so, if this person is legit and they legit got drained, my heart goes out to them, and hey, maybe I'll even send them a few bucks, but I have to verify that, because at the end of the day, like you said, there's so much scamminess on the market, or so much scamminess in this space, that you know if you don't verify that, you're just encouraging the behavior, right? And the challenge is, how do you verify that? And how can you sort of discourage this behavior by gaining a little bit of knowledge before you contribute to it? So it's one of those things where anonymity is really the crux of it. And if this person is legit and can prove he's legit, then hey, you know what? Asking for help is completely legit. Because remember, one of the things that the NFT Web3 community, and I use that word in air quotes, prides itself on, is helping one another out, right? That's supposed to be what it's all about. So if you decide to leverage the community to get some help, then that's completely legit. So yeah, I mean, can you verify it? That's the question. Yeah, that's just kind of my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I mean, we do have the blockchain for all of that. I mean, everything is tracked and stuff. And in regarding that little guy, it actually turned out that he accepted a bid on his DE god. Um, yeah, that was quite crazy. But in the end, I also feel like you have these communities on NFTs, and when you're like a pretty known guy or popular guy in some kind of community, I feel like they're always up for helping and donating and stuff. But I mean, like these days, why I ask for help? Just do a meme coin pre-sale and you get tons of money.
It seems that way, doesn't it? It's pretty wild when you think about it. But yeah, I mean, who knows? It's like I told you about the one guy who posted the photo of himself, in a bathtub covered with blood, talking about how crypto ruined his life. And the truth is, like, that's not what happened. You just made some bad decisions. And if you're not careful, in this marketplace, you can get screwed really, really badly. And speaking as a DGODS holder, when I go into that Ethereum space and I'm looking at the offers, a lot of times what people will do is, let's say the bid is, I think right now the bid's like 1.6 ETH on DGODS, right? So 1.6 ETH, what they'll do is they'll put in a bid for 0.16 ETH. And if you're not careful and paying attention to where the decimal is, then you can accept an offer that was actually a tenth of what it should have been, because someone was trying to, screw you. Someone was trying to scam you, right? And so that's one of the things where, if you're really not paying attention and you're really not watching really, really closely, the quote unquote community again, the air quote community will fuck you left and right. So, I mean, that's one of the reasons that I think, what we're doing with Goodfellas is so needed and so necessary, is just being upfront and honest and taking the market for what it is and trying to educate people on how to do well in it, right? Because there are lots of ways you can do really well and not get screwed. And it just comes down to paying a little bit more attention sometimes than you might think is necessary if you had the assumption that the market is, operating fairly at all times.
Yeah, and I feel like these days it's getting more and more difficult to scam people because you already have some kind of blockchain detectives. There's one guy called Zach. I'm not sure how you pronounce in English. Zach. Is it Zach? I don't know.
Yeah,
But
Zach.
Zach, okay, he is actually like tracking down blockchains and scams and everything. And he was recently exposing a guy who was some kind of developer for some project, and he sold all his coins, 15%, and ran with the money. And he even was going on Twitter and saying like, "Hey, I'm not giving it back. Like this space sucked me out, and you all don't deserve it, and everything." And that detective guy actually went ahead and exposed his real identity. And yeah, it feels like I'm actually in a project that experienced some kind of exploit and lost a couple bucks as well. But the funds are still in the exploiter wallet. So as soon as he goes to as soon as the money, it's like 3 million. As soon as that money goes to some kind of exchange, he is not able to cash it out. And there was something called Tornado Mixer back then, which was like a big pot of money where you were able to send these funds to, and then that tornado mixer created some kind of hash, and you could like receive that money to any other wallet, and you didn't really know where the money came from. So that kind of made it anonymous, and that guy who invented that actually, I think he got arrested. I'm not sure, but yeah, I definitely want that space to become a little safer for like to prevent these kind of things, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know on Bitcoin, for example, there's this technology called CoinJoin, and it's the same idea. If you have a certain number of coins and you don't want them trackable, you run them through a CoinJoin, and then what gets spit out the other side is just a random collection of transactions, and you don't know, which coins belonged where. So I'm sure that technology can exist on any blockchain still if it's done really well. So I'm sure that at some point those exploited funds can be moved, and you wouldn't really be able to track them absent, probably tens of thousands of dollars worth of forensic accounting, or something that would make it almost impossible to be worth your while. But yeah, I mean that type of stuff. I mean, in this space right now, until we start getting to the place where people are a little bit more careful, a little bit more savvy, a little bit more, I guess, understanding of how the marketplace works, we're going to see those things. And again, it's part of our responsibility, and what we're doing is to make sure we educate people so that they can defend against this kind of craziness. Because, at the end of the day, the last thing you want to do is have the reputation of being a participant in a space that screws people. And, we're kind of coming from this place of it's the Wild West right now. Anything goes. There's anonymity. You don't really know who's who. And at the end of the day, can you really hold someone accountable who is in another country somewhere far away? And it's kind of like with Art of Mob, right? Like if I'm holding $3,000 or $4,000 worth of NFTs and some guy in Lebanon screws me, what am I going to do? Am I going to fly to Lebanon, hire a lawyer, learn the local laws, see if I can track this person? I mean, it's financially, it's just not worth it. But if you've got five or $600,000 invested, or millions or whatever is a lot of money for you, and you can afford to do the arbitrage between what it's going to take to get it back you know versus not, then yeah, it might make sense. But right now, with anonymity and irresponsibility in the marketplace, you just have to be more knowledgeable than the next person so that that doesn't happen to you.
Yeah, but the question is, in the beginning when cryptocurrencies started, and if you had like pros and cons, being anonymous was a big pro in the beginning, and there are still projects to try to keep this anonymity, Monero, for example, or there's another project called DOP, the Data Ownership Protocol. They try to like to secure being anonymous, like making transactions. But the question in
Hmm.
the end is, do we want that? Like, is it like like why do you want to be anonymous unless you do something like illegal, right?
I mean, I think there's some legit reasons to be anonymous. I mean, if you're, again, like if you're an opinion maker, for example, or you're someone like a Satoshi who's inventing something that could run counter to culture or cause problems for governments, for other people. I mean, there are legit reasons to be anonymous. But if you're a service provider, right? Think about this. Think about like if you're, let's say you're, well, some a business that you know well, right? Let's say you're in the auto industry and you're buying a car from someone who's completely anonymous. Would you ever do that? No, you would never do that. Because who are you going to go to if that service, that vehicle, that thing that you purchased is a lemon? You're never going to be able to get your money back. You're never going to be able to get satisfaction. So if you are a service provider, and at least for me, like if I'm looking in NFTs and I see people, right now, the NFT world is more like an entertainment industry than anything. It's like, let me gamble here, let me gamble there. Very few people are building actual real businesses like we are. And so at the end of the day, do I really want to gamble in this entertainment industry where if something bad goes on that I have no recourse? Then if you can answer that question with yes, then go ahead and gamble your money, right? If you can't answer that question with a yes, and you don't want to have a situation where you have zero recourse, then just hold on to your money, right? Like don't do it. Don't do something ridiculous where you know you can't get your funds back. Now, again, if you're not a service provider, but you're an opinion maker or you're creating some disruptive technology like blockchain, for example, and you're anonymous like Satoshi, then that is almost necessary. And I get that. And that's completely legitimate in my opinion. But if I'm selling something into the marketplace, I need to be in a situation where the people that I'm serving have some form of recourse. Or else, like I said, like you get so many of these meme coin drops or NFT drops where people dump a whole bunch of shit on the marketplace, they collect a big payday, and then they run away. Like I've even seen guys like collect a big payday and go buy a Lamborghini and then post about it, like, hey, here's my new car, and then disappear completely. And then, of course, the holders have zero recourse. Like, what do you do to that? So at the end of the day, as a consumer, you just have to decide this is a game I'm willing to play where I have no recourse, or this is a game I'm not willing to play where I have no recourse, and then make a decision based on that. At least that's how I look at it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we obviously we do not have statistics on how many people use blockchain and the whole anonymity in a good way. I mean, it feels like we had that discussion a couple of years ago with the whole darknet thing. A lot of people claimed like, hey, it's good for free speech, and there are countries out there where you cannot say your opinion without getting in trouble. And
Mhm.
but in fact, it's probably like the majority of stuff that is being published there is not legal. So the question is, do you want to satisfy like 10% who actually have a good reason to stay anonymous, or do you just like let people do what they want in the end? Oh, we got Bilo in here, man. What's good? Grab your mic and drop a few words, man.
Yeah, I know we got to hear that sexy French accent, man, at some point. Come on. I know that English is not your first language and all that fun stuff, but we got to hear that sexy French accent at some point, my friend. And oh yeah, same thing with April. We need to hear that Southern drawl, girl. And so you guys, by the way, if you want to chat or chime in, feel free to throw up a hand and we'll toss the mic your way. We're just trying to connect around some of these topics we're vibing on today. Obviously, we got a lot more to go through, but definitely if you want to chime in, it's anyone come up and say what you want to say. We'd love to hear your opinions.
Yeah, definitely. So let's jump into our little project. We just had a little artist incubator drop again. This sellout was really, really quick. I think it was like 6 or 7 minutes. And like every time Chaz was 10 minutes late. Hey, did you get him a piece actually?
Yeah, I gave up my piece, man. I gave up my piece to Chaz, and I found another piece for Charlie. So I gave up all of my pieces, bro. So I'm gonna have to go and find one from someone else. But yeah, for sure, it was super awesome. The pieces, I mean, this piece was, I thought, pretty sexy little piece. I like the way it was formulated with the hair and the eyes and the heterochromia, the two different colored eyes, for those of you guys who aren't familiar with that medical term. But yeah, it was super cool. And we only have two more pieces left, right? So if those of you guys holding all five, make sure you get all seven. There's two more drops. And then there's going to be a bonus drop where we've got, actually, I had Maria do some traits for one of our female forms. And then I filled in the blanks with all of our female artwork. And so I have a composite already for the first female bonus. It's going to go to everyone holding all seven. And if time permits, and I'm going to go ahead and just, if I have to work around the clock, I want to make sure that this happens. But I want to make a male counterpart to the female that matches in our male style. So we'll have another matched pair, kind of like X-23 and Wolverine, and make both of those the bonus for everyone holding all seven pieces. So um, that's going to be a lot of fun, and I really appreciate the fact that Maria's been on point with the art and has been, basically ahead of schedule with everything. It's definitely made our job a lot easier. And be that as it may, like we've got quite a few artists on hold right now that we're trying to work deals with. I have a fairly big name guy that I'm trying to pull in, and he keeps putting me on hold like 3 and 4 days at a time. It's one of those kind of situations. But if I can get him in, I know that his art's going to be extremely well received, and I'm stoked to get that into the marketplace. But then, of course, after that, we've got to get back to minting the families. For those of you guys who don't know, we do have a 10,000 piece collection that's going to be minting in phases of 100, and every drop of 100 pieces is what we're calling a whole family. And inside the family, you have ranks. So you've got the underboss, you've got the consigliere, you've got the capos, you've got a hitman, and you also have a one of one. So every time we're doing a batchment of 100 pieces, you're going to get all of those different ranks, and then the rest of the pieces are filled in with soldiers and associates. And then, of course, if you're holding a boss and then you're holding those 100 pieces, then you have created a family, what we're calling a family, inside the Goodfellas universe. So everyone holding a boss, those bosses are now fully minted out on Gamma. We have 5 or 6 or 7 that we're going to put in Treasury to be minted, but everyone who already owns bosses, we're going to be getting the Solana version of the boss prepared. We also have to get the Solana version of the boss prepared with the faces, which was one of our commitments as well. So we already owe you 2 drops, which we're going to be working hard to get to as well. And then, of course, everything is now stakeable, and you should be earning AU. Again, like the whole project is about finding the best quality artwork and the best quality IP in the marketplace, and then licensing that back to you and giving you the ability to purchase using AU, right? So get those pieces staked, make sure that you have everything staked up and that you're earning that AU, so that when we are at a point where we're dropping the token mints, we can continue to build out the collections. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I know we have a couple new eyeballs here, so I just wanted to kind of go over that. I know some of you guys already know this is old news, but just to reiterate, that's what's happening. And the other thing too is, like, if you're holding a boss, you should also have a boss coin and a referral token. Okay. And what we're looking for from the bosses is, again, curating the community, like people in your circle that are interested in the NFT world, that are high quality collectors and buyers. this is how we would prefer to grow. We would prefer to grow through the bosses, not necessarily doing, sort of random, kind of like hypey, like empty promised giveaways on Twitter and inside Discord. That's not really what we want to do. And so we want to make sure that we're building high quality from beginning to end. And that's going to mean that we need to start connecting as a unit and start bringing people in. So we're kind of at that place, and that's basically where we are in a nutshell. So obviously, if you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to throw them in there. But I think that answered your question, hopefully.
Yeah, you just forgot to mention that all this stuff, all the bus coin staking and everything increases your chances to win the Saga phone. Actually, we're giving away a Saga phone once it drops in early 25, I guess. I'm reading through the comments, and below you said something like, what did you write? Zero Coolest Top already has his own community. Not sure what you mean by that. Maybe you can elaborate. And when you talked about the artist incubator pieces. I mean, piece number 7 was actually my favorite, but when I saw what you and Maria did with the bonus piece, it's crazy, man. I think people are going to love it, and yeah, definitely looking forward to publish that. And yeah, we got guest NFT, man. We haven't heard you yet, so if you got a mic, like, feel free to raise your hand, and I'll give you permission to speak. Um, yeah, what else do we have? Next drop is on Wednesday, of course, and you mentioned the batches that are coming out around the halving in mid-April. Looking forward to that as well. It's going to be great. Uh, do we have anything to release regarding our project?
Yeah, there's actually quite a bit on the go. I don't want to overwhelm people with too much information, but we mentioned Soul Rockers a couple times, so I'll just mention it again here right now. So we have obviously spent quite a bit of time making sure that we own licensing to different collections. One of the most recent collections that we acquired is Soul Rockers, and it's about 7,000 pieces. And over the last couple weeks, I've been going through and having to update metadata and get all of the royalties and licensing set up, which has been kind of difficult because the Solana network has been crazy slow actually with all the transaction volume. But the Soul Rockers collection, what I'm thinking about and what I want to do, I've mentioned this a few times in terms of how we can actually structure licensing and how powerful this is in the marketplace, is when we come into the marketplace and we start looking at business, like actual businesses, not just doing technology for the sake of showing off to my buddy who's a developer or showing off to an early adopter. It's like, how can this stuff be used in the real world? And when I look at that collection, I see an arm of business where we actually convert those NFTs to music NFTs. And we actually start partnering with music licensing companies or artists themselves and convert those over so that when you're actually holding that NFT, you're holding a song, you're holding a piece of music. And so this is one arm of business that we can bring under our umbrella. And then, of course, if you think of this as being like our great mafioso family here, and in the in our lore, like if you're owning different businesses and you're taking a portion of different businesses, this fits right within our lore. So one arm of the business might be you're owning music licensing, right? You're owning something in addition to the piece itself, that might touch into another market that will actually benefit you there from the licensing perspective. So this is just one idea that I wanted to throw out. And then of course, as we acquire other collections, we have the ladies collection, of course, which we haven't even broached yet, and we've got another collection that's related to alcohol, which could be then an arm of business in terms of membership clubs and that sort of thing, nightclubs. So I'm really looking forward to developing these arms of business and actually building this business out. And then, of course, we haven't even talked about apparel and the other ways that we can license the IP that we own. So there's a ton of different things coming. And of course, we're going step by step, not trying to get ahead of ourselves. And it all begins with high quality art going to high quality people. So hopefully that answers your question and kind of gives a little bit of the ideas that we're focusing on building out. And like I said before, like this thing is so early. You guys are not even. I mean, we haven't even scratched the surface of what's possible yet. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, and I'm just going through the comments. Bilo is commenting a bit. So if you guys got any questions, just feel free to drop a comment as well. So Zero is obviously some kind of artist. If you're in touch with him, just like give me the connection. I'm definitely reaching out to him. And then you dropped a comment saying, "Is it possible to hire somebody and finish the game?" I'm not really sure what game you're referring to. Jason, you have an idea what game he means?
Yeah, for sure. So I was involved with Soul Rockers from the beginning, and the initial vision was to build out a game whereby like a rhythm game, you know, like almost like Guitar Hero, where you use one of the characters and you play along, right? And I mean, the truth is that game's already been invented. It's called Guitar Hero, right? And so like we can do different versions of that. And yes, it is possible to bring in a developer who can start building that out. And that's certainly not something that I want to, get away from. I want to keep it as a possibility. But for now, in terms of like what can I immediately do with the collection, I can immediately make it valuable by attaching it to a real world asset, basically tokenizing a song, right? We talked a little bit about tokenization. I mentioned this in the bosses channel at the bosses table. You know how I tokenized my one of my rental properties addresses using Propy. You know, it's like tokenization is coming, and we'd want to be in front of that rather than behind. Like we're behind the wave on game development. Like there's a million different games being developed, and so really, if we go into the game development space, we would be chasing that space. And again, it's something we can totally do, and I'm not anti doing that. But would we rather be behind the wave on a thing or in front of a wave on a thing? And so for me, I'm thinking, you know, how quickly could I tokenize music or bring on, artists and entertainers? I actually know two guys who own a music licensing company. So, I mean, I can start making these business connections today and start actually building a real world business around that. And then again, it doesn't rule out the game, but it's like, what side of the wave do I want to be on? Do I want to be ahead of tokenization or do I want to be behind game development? So from an operator standpoint, looking at it as an entrepreneur, I would rather be in front of the next wave rather than behind it. It just makes it easier to ride, right?
Yeah, I wasn't really familiar with what Soul Rockers did, but that game you referred to was Guitar Hero, I think. Was that originally some kind of app for the smartphone or some kind of computer game, or what was it?
Yeah, Guitar Hero is a huge console game, and you basically just, it's like it would play a song, and then you were supposed to play along on a mock instrument. You know, kind of like the dance games where they give you the dance steps, and then you have this pad where you do the dance steps and you follow along, right? And then the better you could follow along, the higher your score. And so Soul Rockers was doing something similar to that, right? Where they were building a rhythm game, and making it sort of play to earn, where you would earn their token and that sort of thing. So um, the concept of sound, obviously, Guitar Hero has been a huge hit and a huge game, and that's why I'm saying like I don't want to rule it out, but the question becomes like how quickly can I monetize these assets? And one of the fastest way to monetize them would be to start tokenizing, you know, music or an RWA, a real world asset.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you are in touch with the former Soul Rockers founder, right? So maybe we can even get him to like on a podcast episode or on Spaces here. That would be great.
Yeah, he's a cool cat, man. For those of you guys who don't know, I actually met him a few times. His name is Brian, and he's actually the drummer for the band Everclear. So if you guys have ever heard Everclear play, he still plays with those guys. And before that, he was the drummer for American Hi-Fi, who had a bunch of hits back in the early 2000s, late 90s. So, I mean, he's been around the music world quite a bit, and he's a big believer in the game space, right? But with his schedule, traveling, touring. I mean, like they'll go to Australia and they'll play for 6 weeks, and then they'll travel to Europe and they'll play for 8 weeks. And, it's just impossible for him to be plugged in. And then, of course, when the market tanked, he had a bunch of people from his team leave. And so it made it very difficult for him. So he tried to shoulder the load. And then it just got to the point where, it was just difficult for him to even open Discord, because, he didn't really have anything to report. And you've got, hundreds of people saying, hey, what's going on? Where's this product? You promised me this, you promised me that, And, being a good person, it's very difficult when you disappoint people. Like the guy is a legit good person. And, he came to Phoenix and he got me and my wife, backstage passes. And, we hung out with him and watched him play from the edge of the stage and just really cool stuff, But I mean, at the end of the day, if you feel like shit every time you open up Discord to try to talk to your community, you're not going to produce good work. And that's kind of where he was at, right? So his focus was just getting back to the music space and taking care of his family and all that kind of thing. And he didn't really have the wherewithal to, or follow through on, finishing the game. His time constraints being what they are, there's just not enough hours in the day. Like even with what we're doing with licensing, I mean, I can tell you that it's very difficult some days to get up and go when you've got to do 15 different things, right? And you pair that out to the real world, where now you have to support a family and you have to support a business and you've got this going on and that going on. It makes it really hard, right? So my heart goes out to founders who really give it an effort and really want to make sure that they're doing good things. But at the same token, it's like what we're committed to now is enough, and it's plenty in terms of getting us to where we need to go. And I really want to explore everything fully rather than like half doing something, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Crazy man. Let me know when these guys are in Germany so I can check out and go listen to their music. Um, but that actually brings us back to the importance of building a good community because, I've seen it so many times on different Discords, whenever there is like silence for 2 days, people already start shouting like, hey, when this, when that, when utility, and people are all, even like, when does the floor price go up? And when projects actually like publish some kind of utility, people start being disappointed if the floor price does not rise instantly, and
Hmm.
that's crazy. And that's why I think it's so important to build a solid community who's behind everything you do, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point in curating the people that we have here. And that's why we haven't done the freebie this and the freebie that, because it draws in the people who don't really care. Like you'll see a bunch of freebie projects going off in the next couple weeks, and they'll peak at mint and then they'll go to zero, or they'll go to, point zero 0.01 or point zero zero 0.001. And I mean, the truth is that's always going to be the case when you're not providing value. So the question is like, how do I provide value to the community? And again, coming back to like what we really want to make sure we're doing is finding the gold in the marketplace, right? Like when I say let's find gold, that's what I mean. Like what is the best art? How can we improve our art? How can we provide great service to people? When people come into the Discord, just saying hello, for example, or like when people ask you a question, like answering, and not taking 3 weeks to get back to them, kind of a thing, right? Like we're at this place where there's so much opportunity to really communicate and build relationship with quality people and put quality assets in their hands so that when the market, expands and starts to mature, that they are sitting very, very, very good. But we're not there yet, right? It's just like if you come back to '09 when Bitcoin was first released, right? And it was 0.00005 cents for a Bitcoin, right? Well, here we are 15 years later, and those same Bitcoins that people were spending on pizzas, are now worth $70,000, or today $65,000, right? It's the same is going to be true with tokenization. Like we're in the early phases, people who are collecting the best artwork and the early artwork are going to be the ones who get rewarded in the future. And this is one of the reasons that we're limiting the pieces And this is one of the reasons that we're limiting the drops to 100 at a time, because we don't want to oversaturate or create too much of a thing, because the scarcity at maturity is really what's going to drive value. So we want to launch artists. We want to launch scarce pieces. We want to make sure our artwork is constantly improving. We want to make sure that it's high quality. We want to make sure that the community is actually curated into people who give a fucking shit that the project does very well and that their assets are protected, right? And so we've been very fortunate in that, in having that little sort of ordinal gateway to bring folks in. And definitely we're going to focus more on expansion as we go forward, but we want to expand into bringing more of the quality holders in and more of the quality people into the community. So if that means we bring in 2 or 3 a week, so be it. If that means we bring in 30 to 50 a week, so be it. We haven't even started really publicly advertising this thing yet. So as we go, everybody who's in now is actually sitting very pretty for those days, and those days are planned. So I guess that's kind of how I'm looking at it. I know you and I have had these conversations quite a bit, and sort of, I think we've talked about this through the lens of DeGods, and I can go back through that, if no one's bored by this conversation. But for now, I'll just turn it back over.
When you talk about coins, there is always the discussion about burns. Tokens get burned, and you try to improve or like raise scarcity and everything. And I saw a lot of NFT projects recently that bought back NFTs and burned them. And do you think that's a legit way to increase like scarcity and making pieces like rarer?
Yeah, I mean, this is again a stolen technique from the stock market, right? Whenever a company has a lot of cash, they maybe they have a good quarter or a good year, and they're sitting on a lot of cash, and their stock really isn't doing much. What they'll do is they'll deploy that cash into the marketplace, and they'll buy their own stock back to take it out of circulation, which basically just makes the company more valuable, because if the stock is more scarce and the same number of buyers exist, then now they can basically say, okay, well, we increase shareholder value, when really all they did was decrease the amount on the marketplace. It's the same with the NFT market, right? So there's nothing really new happening here in that space. Like each of these projects you can liken to an IPO, an initial public offering. They're like IPOs for Web3. And, if we have a big raise and then all of a sudden floor price tanks, which is actually what happens almost every time, then what they can do is they can buy back the pieces and burn them. And there's some legitimacy to that when you look at projects who do it really, really well. Like for those of you guys who have followed some of my buys and sells, like, you'll know that I own Orbitals, you'll know that I own Droid. And the reason I own those projects on Solana is because it's run by people who know how to run money. And so because they know how to run money, they understand what the buyback does, and they understand what market saturation does. And they're doing it as a means to lift the treasury, and they lift that in order to provide value to their people, right? It's not just done to look like we're doing something, it's done to actually provide value back to the holder. And so when I say like provide value back to the holder, there's 1,000 different ways to do that. But the question is it effective? And if you don't know what you're doing when you do a buyback and burn, all you're really doing is nothing. So you have to make sure that the buyback and burn actually benefits your holders before you can call it value creation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally makes sense. I mean, imagine we have all Goodfellas minted out 10,000 pieces collection, and like people in the Discord were asking for that, especially like buying back stuff and burning Goodfellas.
Mm-hmm.
Um, would you say that like like decreasing the supply makes sense in that way that when we are obviously an art first project, so we want to provide as much art as possible. So yeah, would you ever consider that?
Yeah, again, I mean, in the context of does it provide value to our community, to our holders, right? I mean, that's our job as founders. It's not to, drop something and disappear. The problem that we have as founders is, okay, I have this awesome idea. How do I make people, you know, interested, A, and then care about it, B? And the reason that someone cares about your project is there's a value proposition in it for them. And when we're targeting collectors, entrepreneurs, high quality holders, one of the value propositions that we're giving people is the confidence in knowing that no matter what happens tomorrow, you're not going to come to our Discord and see some message that says, oh, hey guys, it was really hard. We're going to walk away now. Like I hate that, right? Like my first year of NFTs, I can't tell you how many times I went to a Discord server and the founder just walked away because it was hard, you know, or they walked away because they weren't able to provide value or to figure it out, right? So the first value proposition is knowing and having the confidence in what we're doing is going to be here for life and possibly after that, and structuring this thing in a way so that it can continue on after me, after you, and after whoever comes after us, so that it's a forever situation, right? That's priority number one, and that's value proposition number one. Value proposition number two is how do we make the pieces even more valuable as time passes instead of less valuable? And that comes from the scarcity piece, that comes from the different arms of business, that comes from licensing and exposure. And so those are all the arms of business that you and I are just now beginning to explore. So if at some point it made sense to burn pieces, then I would absolutely say, hey, yeah, let's burn some pieces, right? I kind of like the way DGods did it. Like they had a bunch of people burn their pieces back in the day, and they turned all their burned pieces into ordinals. So rather than the burned piece going to zero and being nothing, they actually made it more value by turning it into an ordinal. So I thought that was a really cool way of handling that situation. And we could do something similar with Goodfellas. But the challenge is like if someone burns a Goodfella, where you have to remember like you're burning your own IP, right? So if I like the IP, if I like the image and I own that image, I mean, for me personally, I'm never going to burn it. Like I don't want to burn my personal pieces because I literally own that piece. And that's one of the that's, another one of the guarantees that we've made to our people is that they own the artwork. It's not something that can ever be taken from them no matter what happens, right? Another security, another piece of insurance for our people, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I just saw below commenting like people are looking for some kind of passive income, and that's actually what we try to do by doing all that licensing stuff. And like that's our ultimate goal to have some kind of revenue share, giving back to the community. I mean, that's why we are in this phase of creating whales, and this is why it's so important that we mint out these batches and that these pieces go to you guys, to the bosses, that you will be able to hold a family of 100 pieces in the end and will like benefiting most from everything, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the passive income piece is very difficult to do when all you do is buy and sell, right? So, and if you look at any market that is only buy and sell, it's not a passive residual income sort of situation. I own real estate in the real world, so I could sit here and I could go buy a property and then I could sell it later for a 5 or 10 or $50,000 gain. Okay, but that's not passive income. That's me actively looking for the next person to sell to and then selling, and then I have to pay tax on that gain like it's my regular income. A passive residual situation is holding something that pays me forever. And so the idea behind making the bosses whales is that once you earn the AU and you can token mint, basically you can pick up NFTs for free in terms of quote unquote dollars free, right? It's not free because you're investing time and you're staking. But if you can purchase new NFTs to the extent that you can then bring them to market, now you can create a passive income situation where you're picking up SOL and you can convert that to whatever you want at will. And so that's really the long-term play here is like, how can I get quality NFTs that I can then convert into, some form of spendable cash in the future? And that's done through holding for the long term, not buying and selling and buying and selling and buying and selling. There's nothing passive about buying and selling.
Yeah, but I think that's how the market started, especially back then in 2021. You know, NFTs were a lot of flipping back then. I mean, people never intended to hold a lot of stuff. They always tried to mint and sell, and the meta changed, and it's a lot more about building a sustainable business and trying to create value in the long term, like you just described.
Yeah, for sure. And like there is a way to buy and sell from a passive perspective if you, for example, if you have a bot that's buying and selling on your behalf, right? But even then, you have to train it and you have to watch it. So it's not quite the same thing. But yeah, I mean, from a passive residual standpoint, like I want everyone who's with us to benefit from that idea of earning and then taking those earnings that they didn't have to do anything to acquire other than wait, and then turn that into a spendable form of cash at some point. That's really where it's at. And things like Drip House, for example, if I look at what Drip House is doing, they'll drop like tens of thousands of the same piece of art, to various holders across whatever space. And that's great because you're picking up the art. But the bad thing is it's such a saturated thing. Like there's so much of it that the value proposition there is destroyed. And so what we're doing is similar, but the value proposition is not destroyed. And that's really why, we want to make the bosses the whales so that they can control the destiny of all the future pieces and truly be in partnership with this as we build this thing out.
Yeah, man, totally agree. So let's conclude a bit. We got next week's Artist Incubator drop. I'm not even sure what piece it's gonna be. I have to check that again. But the last two drops are definitely going to be crazy good. So looking forward to drop these. And yeah, did we have some other topics for today, or are we good?
I don't even think we touched on topics, brother. We went down the rabbit hole, like the project rabbit hole. But yeah, having said that, I'll just um, throw it out here. If anybody has any questions, throw your hands up. We'll get your questions before we jump off here. But another thing that I just want to mention real quick is from the ordinals standpoint, we've got some interesting things happening, and I want to just open the door for those of you guys who are holding the ordinals. I think there's a lot of value to be had there, and a lot of it has to do with recursive inscriptions. And I'll talk a little bit about what that means maybe next week or on the podcast. But basically, it gives us the ability to create artwork that doesn't take up much space on chain, and we can actually create ordinals that can be much more affordable but also have a very high resolution rather than having to shrink the files way down. So this is something to look for. Again, we've got the ladies. It'd be very cool to have like a set of like lady bosses, like 100 lady bosses. I'd love to see that happen. And maybe we can do that with recursive inscriptions. We've got the next two AI drops. And then of course, we have the next family coming in and around the halving. So that said, if you guys have a question or you want to throw up a hand and make a comment, feel free, and I'll turn it back over to Alex.
Yeah, as we got guest NFT user in this space, so man, let me know what you do with your runestone. I'm not sure. I know Archer sold his two pieces, I think you got, and I'm not sure about it. It's stuck at zero point 0.5 Bitcoin, zero point 0.05 Bitcoin right now, and I see there's a lot of stuff coming, a lot of airdrops and whitelists and everything. But have you found any significant important stuff that needs to be minted? I have no idea, man. If I should wait for the runes meme coin, or if I should sell it, let me know in the Discord what you do, or maybe in the comments. I have no idea. Jason, you sold yours. What were your reasons for that?
You know me, man. I don't hold shitcoins. I don't care like where they come from. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not holding shitcoins, right? So I'd rather have the Bitcoin. I'd rather have the underlying asset. And so yeah, I dumped mine at like 1.8 or 1.9, 0.018, 0.019, and then it went to 0.05. And I think it's coming back down. I mean, there's still a month before the next halving, so I would expect the price to come way back down. I mean, who knows? Maybe I'll buy back in if it comes down enough. But one thing I would just caution you guys, like on some of those quote unquote airdrops that are supposed to be coming, just make sure they're verified. I went through that list and I think only 2 of the 10 was verified. So, just make sure that you're holding for the right reasons. If you could walk away with 0.05 Bitcoin, which was what, like 3 grand today, $3,500, depending on what Bitcoin's price is, I'd much rather be sitting on that than sitting on a promise. That's just me.
Yeah, okay. Guest NFT user just wrote that he didn't receive a rune stone. So I just thought because I think you posted the Discord link to the tweet um, telling what kind of airdrops we can expect. But just as Jason mentioned, I mean, there are a lot of people saying like, hey, we are giving whitelist to runestone holders and everything, and they tend to believe that everything they drop is valuable. But in the end, there's probably a lot of shit there, and yeah, be cautious about that. And yeah, that's it. I think we are good, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Just one quick thing for those of you guys who are looking at rune stones. Just remember that rune stones is not runes, and it is not the token that represents runes. Okay, so there's some confusion there. Runestones is not runes. Runes is a protocol that enables runestones. Runestones could be, gemstones or Flintstones for all I know. Like, it's not runes. Okay. So just understand that runestones and runes are two entirely different projects and they are not related. One is the protocol, and the other thing is going to be the thing that lives on top of the protocol. So who's to say that runestones is going to be more valuable than Flintstones vitamins? Who knows?
Yeah, let's see about that. Okay, perfect. So thank you everyone for listening. Tune into the podcast. We have a lot of interesting stuff that we talk about there. And yeah, looking forward to next week and looking forward to the mint and see you guys there.